Hi, this is Cassie Spurlock with MyCounselor.Online, and today I get the opportunity to chat with September Trent, one of our awesome therapists on the team, about an article she wrote for parents on how to have healthy relationships with their adult children. So thanks for being with me today, September.
No problem. I'm glad to be here.
All right. So the first thing that stuck out to me as I was reading your article was the fact that this was actually an article topic. You know, it seems only appropriate that as children age out, they become these amazing adults, and seamless, wonderful friendships with adult children take place, just as we always dreamed of when we were raising our children from infants. That's not always the case. So could you talk about a little bit about why that's not always the case, why those seamless transitions may not happen, may not look like what we think they will?
Sure. It could be a lot of different reasons. Maybe your children have some issues that have come up for themselves, and maybe they don't agree with some of the way that you parented them, or maybe they have some difficult situations that happen that hasn't been talked about, and so they're maybe unsure of what type of relationship they want with you.
Yeah.
Maybe even for you, it's kind of odd to see your child is an adult now, and they're having their adult life, and I'm not parenting them. I'm not telling them what to do, how to live their life. And when I've tried to do that, it hasn't gone well. And so just that transition to we're more of on the same level than we were when I was parenting them.
Yeah, I can see how that would throw a lot of new challenges into the mix. Your article talks a lot about expectations and how thinking through expectations and talking about expectations helps in a huge way to navigate this journey. So you mentioned some realistic expectations that parents can expect. How should a parent know what expectations are realistic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think really looking at the interactions maybe that the parent has already had with their children and how their children have responded to that. I think I gave the example of Christmas, of if the parent expects to spend every Christmas with their adult child, maybe that child seems kind of irritated, upset with that, then you need to go back and say, okay, is that realistic? If my child is married, we may need to share Christmas holiday. Also just talking to other people, other friends that are in the same life transition or same life stage as you are, and seeing, okay, what kind of expectations do you have with your adult children, and seeing if they're similar or if they're even reasonable, because you may want to have this relationship with your adult children where you're seeing them all the time, but you kind of have to understand they're living their own life, they have their own children, and they may not have as much time as you would like to spend with them, even though they may want that too. It might really be difficult. And so really having discussions, number one, if you're married with your spouse, number two, with maybe some friends that are in the same life stage, and then three, definitely with children about, hey, this is what I expect, this is what I would like to happen. Is that possible? What do you think about that? And by having that conversation with your adult kids, that opens it up for them to talk with you about, okay, this is what works for us, this is what doesn't work for us.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Who do you feel like should be initiating that conversation?
You know, I think if you're wanting to have that conversation, then you should initiate it, because I think if you wait for your adult children to do it, it may never happen. They may, number one, maybe not see an issue, or maybe if they do, they may not know how to bring it up. And if you're the first one to start the conversation, it makes them more comfortable, if there's safety in the relationship, to be able to talk about things that might be bothering them, things they want to do, things they expect out of the relationship with the parent.
What do you mean safety in the relationship?
Sure. When I talk about safety, I mean, obviously physical safety is important where we're not hurting each other physically, but I'm speaking more of emotional safety, where we can talk to one another about how we feel and the other person doesn't get mad isn't passive aggressive, where if I don't agree with how you feel, then I'm not going to talk with you, or I'm going to say something rude to you. It's where we both feel comfortable sharing emotions. We listen to one another. We try to understand one another. And every part of us is welcome in the relationship, even if we don't agree with it or have the same opinion.
Yeah, that makes sense. One of the other healthy relationship characteristics you mentioned was you just hit on listening, but also I wanted to talk about space. You talked about space. So kind of flesh out for us what space in a parent adult child relationship could look like.
Sure. In one example, if you have a conversation with your adult child and they express frustration, maybe anger, sadness, and it seems like they're not ready to talk about that, it would be a good idea to say, hey, I understand that maybe this isn't a topic you're ready to talk about or want to talk about at this time. Would it be okay if we each go our separate ways for, specify an amount of time and then come back and talk about this? And so it's important to know that when you bring up something in a conversation, that person may not be ready to talk about it, but it's very healthy to let them have their time to think about that, to know what to say, to give them space, but at the same time coming back and saying, okay, this is when we'd like to try to get back together to talk about it. I think if you don't give them space, they're going to feel like there's too much going on between the two of you, and they don't maybe have privacy, they don't have what they need to be able to function on their own or as an adult, and they need to be able to give that to them.
Yeah. As a mom, as I'm thinking through this, I have littles at home, and just thinking about how, you pour your whole life into your relationship with them and teaching them and training them and loving on them. It seems like it could be really hard if they don't have the same expectation for an adult relationship as you do. Is it normal for moms, especially, dads too, but moms especially, I would think, to grieve as their children transition about this aspect of their children transitioning into adulthood?
Definitely, especially with, maybe children graduating high school, graduating college, marriage, just how that changes the relationship between a mom, a dad, and their children. And I think that grieving process will look like thinking about what it was like in that previous transition, the things that you enjoyed, maybe didn't enjoy, and then this new transition, this new season of life, what that's going to be like. And if expectations don't coincide with your children, being respectful of that and meeting them where they're at is going to be so important, because they're going to see that by you meeting their expectations and being okay with them not being the same as yours, they're going to see that as respect, and it may even help your relationship grow, the safety in your relationship grow, the communication grow. And so that respect for your child will be very important.
Yeah. What would you suggest to a parent that is grieving that to fill that space in their life and relationships that they have had with their child being their, primary focus all these years?
Yes. Yeah, it can be a number of things. Maybe seeking out relationships with people that are their own age. Maybe now they have more time to get involved in church groups or activities out in the community where they're meeting couples or people that are their own age, maybe even traveling with them, really focusing on some of those relationships. I think also maybe they need a little bit of therapy if they're really struggling with that transition and just how to navigate that. Maybe if you have grandkids, I mean, it won't be the same relationship, but that might take up a lot of your time too. But really focusing on, okay, what are some of the things maybe I neglected or didn't get to do when I was parenting? Maybe I can focus on some of those things while I'm focusing on having this relationship with my adult children that, meets their expectations and some of mine as well.
Yeah, that's great. How could you mentioned in your article how it can be a different creature if your child as an adult is still living at home. So what would you like to say to parents, or what would you encourage parents to know and understand and consider if their child is living at home?
Sure. A few things. I think if the child is still living at home, number one, giving them physical space to be an adult. If it's possible, having them have their own space in the house, if you have a basement, things like that. But also having them function as an adult. They need to have a job. They need to pay bills. They need to be able to take care of themselves. You shouldn't be letting them live there for nothing, doing their laundry, not if they don't have a job, allowing them just to stay home and watching TV, doing computer things. They need to be a functioning adult, whether that's going to school, working, taking care of their own bills, their laundry, things like that. And if they're doing that, then I think that space piece is extremely important, because if they are a functioning adult, I'm sure they don't really want to live with their parents. It's just kind of for a time period. And so if you can be respectful of that, that would be very important.
What about for a parent that is over functioning for their adult child, doing their laundry or taking care of their finances or paying their phone bill or whatever? Is that actually a problem? Why would they not want to continue that same relationship that they've had all these years?
Sure. A couple reasons. Number one, with over functioning for them, when maybe the parent's not able to help them anymore, their child's not going to have those skills to be able to pay their bills, take care of themselves, know how to get a job, have the skills to get a job. Second, when they try to do these things, when they try to have their children pay their own bills, act as a functioning adult, they're going to get some maybe backlash from that from their children, because the children haven't had to do that most of their life, and they don't maybe want to. And so just knowing when you initiate those boundaries, they may not really be happy with that, and just knowing that's going to be a difficult time, but your child needs that, your adult child needs that, so they can be a functioning adult without you. Because even though we'd like to think we're going to live forever, we're not. And we got to make sure they have the skills that they need to be able to function on their own.
Yeah, that's truly loving.
Yeah, yes, yes.
Well, this has been really good, and thank you so much for meeting with me and for writing this article. And if you want to hear more from September Trent, or if you want to hear more articles on lots of different topics from any of the other therapists on the My Counselor team, you can check them out at MyCounselor.Online.